So after the first group were the senior managers in this area. So what sort of changes? They were all talking about it. I think that was a big change. So that when we came together as a group, the horses were referred to often, in terms of behaviours, people's behaviours, or, we'd talk about energy, or we'd talk about physical presence, or we'd talk about giving feedback. And that was really interesting, particularly as the group had been through it together. There was a lot of humour around it, but underneath that humour was some really good learnings, I think. And what I liked about that is generally with training, people talk about it for a week or so, and often people come out and they're on a high and they've had, exciting things happen and they're all gung-ho, and then it sort of peters off, quite quickly over a time. With the horses, it went up after, but then it kind of stayed there for a long time. And even now, some of these managers, and I think part of that is that we've had other people through it, so you talk about how that person went or how that person went, but it's still referred to. Some of those principles that we learned from Sudbury leadership still come up in our management meetings or just in our day-to-day interactions with each other.
So it's had a long-term effect, and I suppose in a way it's affecting the whole culture of Downer, would you say?
Absolutely. In this area, obviously we've just, that's where we've really focused on it, and I believe the more people that we get through it, the more of a culture it would become. So, like I say, we do a lot of leadership. There's lots of leadership sort of tools that are thrown out often and talked about, but the horses is in a sort of a different way, because it's got a very practical application to the day-to-day interactions people have.
And you also went on the course. What was your personal experience? What did you learn about yourself?
Well, it's interesting because I'd observed it a couple of times, so I was quite nervous having watched how other people coped, and I had a little bit of an idea of how it was going to be, and also I knew, I was pretty aware of the bits that I needed to work on, so I knew what sort of horse I was going to be given probably on the second day. So I was really interested to try it. I wanted to, it's one thing, and I think this is the key to the course. It's one thing watching, and it's a completely another experience actually doing. So working with the horse, especially on the first day, I found it quite exciting. I found that, I can do this. It gave me some confidence to work with this horse after watching some people fail and some people succeed. So I was very happy that first day, and then it was all a bit easy. I knew that the next day was going to be really challenging for me, but I also I was really aware that it was something that I needed to work on. And that, do you want me to talk about this more? It's not that I let people walk over me or anything like that, but I generally have people think that I'm the nice person that will go out of their way to help. And I like to be that, but sometimes there's a time to say enough's enough, and I know that potentially that I didn't do that as quickly as I should have been doing at work. Well, I certainly am now, and that's a direct result of the horses. So the second day I got a very stroppy horse, and I had watched him the first day try to bite the person all day. I was very scared of it. I kept me awake the night before knowing that the likelihood of getting this horse was very high, and I had all these strategies. I was going to leave and I was going to be called away because it was quite a physically intimidating horse, and I was quite scared of it. So when the next morning came around and they said, "Debbie, you're with Romeo," I decided, well, I really just needed to get on with it. It was obviously a lesson that I needed to learn. Went down to the arena, and he did keep trying to bite me, and I was not very good. I didn't set very clear boundaries because I was so scared. And then at one stage, he just really annoyed me, and I turned around and gave him a really good, flick of the reins, and really meant what I said, that I'd had enough. And he didn't try and bite me at all for the rest of the day. And that was huge learning for me, because I'd seen the person the day before try to get quite aggressive with the horse. I'd seen them what appeared to be quite confidently telling it off, and this horse continued to bite and bite and bite. So for me, what did I learn? Why did he stop trying to bite me? And I think for me it was that I really meant it. That I'd set a really good boundary and decided, I wasn't going to have this anymore. And that I really needed to do that at work. So, and also I only needed to do that once. It's not that the horse suddenly became perfect and all of a sudden would do everything that I wanted to. That wasn't that wasn't the case at all. But it didn't try and overstep that particular line anymore.
So you got tough. You learnt when to get tough, when to really mean it.
And that if you do it in the right way, you actually only need to do it once, and they're not going to step over that line again. So then later on in the day, I learnt more things as I was trying to get this horse over the bridges, and I really struggled with him. But I learned about perseverance. I learned about trying different things. I learned about, the rewards that you get from not giving up. And that's, those are all really good things too. But the main thing for me was just putting that line in the stand and really meaning it.
Tell me about some of the downer people. What changes have you seen in them?
There's a few that have stood out for me in all sorts of different ways. One of them was one of the early on courses, and we had this manager who we were quite concerned about because he just didn't seem to really be getting any traction in his job, and everything was a little bit hard, and there was a lot of talk about how he should manage things and very little action. And then he came to the horses, and it was exactly like that. He would try a little bit, and then he'd give up, and then he'd moan about, it wasn't working, and he'd want to talk to people about it, and it was all talk, but no action. And he got some quite robust feedback about that during the course, both from the Sudbury leadership team, but also from the managers that were there and the peers. And he certainly took that feedback back to work, and he has really stepped up. In fact, just this morning someone was talking about, wow, he's just so turned around. So that, I don't think, the horses program's not a magic spell, but it is a good start. It's that identifying where the areas are that you really need to work on and bringing that back, having that way of bringing it back to remembrance and practically being able to do something about it. And it certainly has contributed really well to the change in this manager. So that was a really good one. We had a team come down to Sudbury leadership course, and part of that team there was some really robust feedback given. Now, they were always seen as a star team in Down, and we thought that they were functioning really well, which they were. So it's not just for poorly functioning people or people that need to make a difference. It's about improving things that are going well already. So this highly functional team was chosen to come down here, and as part of that, some people had some different interactions and some different reactions about their time with the horses. And during our final session, there was some really, robust is the word, feedback given, and it just strengthened the group. Because they were so highly functioning, they didn't often get a lot of, constructive feedback that was saying, you're not doing that well. So to do that in that group environment was really good. And I just talked to the manager this morning in the car on the way over, and he was saying, that's what's really changed for that team. Now when we have team meetings, we give each other that sort of feedback all the time, and we always refer to the horses and say, remember, a horse will give you absolutely honest feedback, and that's what we need to do. And it also almost gives you permission to say those things that maybe you might have been a little bit nervous about saying before, if you frame it in the context of, this is what we did at the horses, or horses don't sugar soap it, then we won't either. And that's actually had a really big effect on the team.
Wow. If you were talking to other HR professionals about this program, how would you describe it in HR terms?
In HR terms, that's an interesting question, because it is hard to describe until you've actually seen it. So what would I talk about? I would say, I'd say that you need to try it, that all the talking in the world, and it kind of reflects leadership programs, all the talking in the world actually doesn't make up for the experience. And so that's how I describe it, and that's actually how the course is. The leadership programs, and I believe every leadership program has a place, you can never get enough leadership, but the difference between sitting in a classroom and being taught by a PowerPoint and being in an arena with a horse, they're just poles apart. So they both have good things, but in terms of getting a real difference out of somebody, the actual practical application of being part of the Sudbury Leadership Program, where it's all hands-on, is huge. That's how I describe it.
And how would you recommend this training to other organisations? What would you say to recommend it?
I would talk about the fact that we tried it. Yes, we probably felt like you initially. This is what I'd say to another organisation. So we're a little bit sceptical on what's a horse going to teach somebody, and it's a reasonable investment to send all your employees somewhere else to go and work with horses for 2 days, and how's that relevant to our business? And I'll say, well, we felt like that, so we tried it, and we have had such fantastic results from this hands-on practical leadership training that we've now put 80 of our people in the lower north through it, and that sort of speaks for itself.